Part 9 includes replacing hardwiring between the locomotives and battery cars with MicroMark microconnectors, review and installation tips for the MicroMark 32-pin microconnectors, using the momentum inertia function of LocoFi. More updates to my website, A Journey into HO Scale Model Railroading in the 21st Century. Useful links are in the description below this video. A short review and installation tips for the MicroMark 32-pin microconnectors. Note, the black and white photos are from the number 86559 Micro Miniature Connectors instruction sheet. The instruction sheet can be found online, and a paper version is packaged with the connectors. Conrail with JST connector to battery boxes in gondola. My first attempts at using connectors failed because I felt that the chosen connectors were too bulky and/or too difficult to use and separate. Connectors that I had previously tried were Dean's microplugs PN1225, WST Red Ultra Mini T-plug connectors, microdeans, and eBoot 20 AWG JST plug connector. The end result was that the leads from the locomotive were hardwired to the battery box leads. They were run that way for many months. Both locomotives are running with hard wiring in this photo. Note in the photo that the battery car for the Conrail is a gondola, and for the CSX it is the SU boxcar, and they are hardwired together. During my quest for a decent connector, I'd become aware of the MicroMark 32-pin microconnectors. The USA nickel coin gives an indication as to the MicroMark connector's size. Near the end of September 2022, I decided to give them a try, as I wanted to be able to switch the battery cars around and also have one more usable piece of rolling stock if only one locomotive was being used. As it turned out, these connectors were exactly what I was looking for. They are easy to use and solder. This is the way I use them. I do not use them in pairs, but as individual connectors. Doing that allows only a very small hole to be drilled in rolling stock, like the gondola. The photo shows the batteries, battery cars with the battery boxes installed, locomotives, and fine tip cutters used to separate each connector from the strip of connectors. I am very satisfied with this product and recommend them. The only downside for me was that neither the MicroMark product page nor the connector instructions have a maximum current carrying ability or wattage noted. The instruction sheet does provide a hint when it states you can even stack two 4-pin links to make a standard 8-pin DCC decoder connector. I believe that these connectors are fine for most HO applications, but that other connectors might be better for S-scale, O-scale, and other large scales. The nitty-gritty of the connector installation. The Walthers EMD GP15-1, Conrail, and Gondola had their connectors added first. Luckily, my wife makes jewelry. She had a couple of fine tip cutters to choose from. Fine tip cutters can be found online using the search term fine tip wire cutters. Be careful to cut in the grooves between the individual connectors. To keep the cutoff connector from disappearing, do the cutoff inside a plastic bag, like a plastic grocery bag. Also, be careful and use only the tips of the cutter to carefully separate the connectors along their groove. Cutting too deeply exposes and ruins the neighboring connector. Don't ask. The gondola's battery boxes were set up for use with three EFEST IMR 10440 size 350 milliamp hour batteries. Therefore, the rear battery box that had been modified to use only one of its slots was removed, and a new de-winged battery box was connected so that four SoShine IFR 10440 size 280 milliamp hour batteries could be used. I can still use the EFEST batteries, as the SoShine IFR batteries came with two connector batteries that are just basically connectors in the shape of a 10440 size battery. The battery size connector can be in one of the four slots of the battery boxes when using three EFEST IMR batteries. The battery boxes were removed from the gondola to make them easier to work with. The wires were easily soldered to the connectors once the hard wiring had been clipped. It seemed to be a good idea to put on the heat shrink tubing before burying the end of the wire to do the tinning and soldering. I used folded masking tape, sticky side out, to hold the battery boxes in place in the gondola. Once everything was hooked up, four SoShine IFR batteries were inserted into the battery boxes and LocoFi was turned on and tried. Everything worked as expected. The Conrail had never been configured for use with the LocoFi app using four IFR batteries. It was configured on the demo layout's 16-foot, 3-inch main loop using 7 steps and 4 fully charged SoShine lithium iron phosphate IFR batteries. During the configuration, the connectors didn't appear to cause a great increase of resistance. Step 7 indicated a scale speed of 74 miles per hour. The top speed was set to 65 miles per hour, as that is the top speed of the full-scale EMD GP15-1. After a bit of running the train, the locomotive was returned to the bench. The connectors were disconnected and the leads from the locomotive were pulled out of the gondola. Next, the Walthers EMD GP15-1 CSX with the Soo boxcar battery car had its connectors added. The battery boxes were removed from the boxcar frame. They had already been set up to use 4 IFR batteries, so there was no need to change for a new battery box. The two locomotives were set next to each other, and the hard wiring of the CSX leads from the locomotive were clipped apart to be the same length of the leads from the Conrail locomotive. The connectors were added with the polarity the same as the Conrail. The battery boxes were taped back onto the boxcar frame. The unit was tested and appeared to be working fine. The boxcar battery car was hooked up to the Conrail for the first time and the CSX to the gondola. Everything was checked and all was working well. The CSX, using the gondola as the battery car for the first time, was tested on the demo layout. It did not need to be reconfigured as it had already been running using 4 IFR batteries. A complete train that consisted of the CSX local, gondola battery car with 4 IFR batteries, the Soo boxcar with 3 EFEST batteries to keep the car near the NMRA recommended weight, the brown Conrail boxcar, and a caboose was run very successfully. Success! I now have the ability to use either the gondola or Soo boxcar as a battery car for either locomotive, or add either the gondola or Soo boxcar to a consist when using either one of the locomotives. The following video shows the CSX running with the 4 rolling stock consist. The gondola has the 4 SoShine IFR batteries providing power to the locomotive. The Soo boxcar has 3 EFEST IMR batteries along for the ride to keep the boxcar in the NMRA recommended range. Using the momentum inertia feature of LocoFi, the following video demonstrates both locomotives running with their respective battery cars interchanged. It also demonstrates the use of the momentum inertia feature of LocoFi. The Conrail's throttle was set to full, but LocoFi very slowly starts the locomotive from a full stop and then up to full speed. The foam board top is acting as a sounding board, and the iPhone is amplifying it a lot. It really sounds excellent in person. My next real layout will have insulation foam and cork roadbed on the top to deaden the sound of the motor and the clickety-clack of the rails some. More updates to my website, A Journey into HO-Scale Model Railroading in the 21st Century. References to my not using connectors have been changed and renoted to what I am using now, since I am now recommending the use of 4 lithium iron phosphate 10440 size batteries in a trailing battery car for HO Deadrail, battery on board. A review of the SkyRC MC3000 multi-chemistry battery charger has been posted along with a tutorial for this very good overall charger for rechargeable lithium and nickel-based cylindrical batteries. I suggest that my website should be checked at least on a monthly basis to see what I've learned, relearned, and where I'm going next with this project. My email address is linked at the top of my webpage if you have questions to ask or comments to share.